Everyone, GameWiz1 here. I wanted to take a moment to talk to you today about the recently announced deal which has been reached by Congress to finally put an end to the endless nonsensical bickering that has shut down the government for more than the past 2 weeks. As I understand it, finally, a compromise was reached that would allow the nation to again, request a little bit more money to get things going. And I have to say, I'm so relieved that this has finally happened because as it was, we were only days away from defaulting on our national debt, which, as you may or may not imagine, would have been an absolute catastrophe for the United States. Unfortunately, we have still taken an absolute beating in public opinion polls. Mind you, I'm incredibly happy and relieved that the vast majority of the blame is placed right where it belongs, which is in the lap of the majority of Republicans, including their incredibly vocal minority, the Tea Party. Wow, what a disaster the Tea Party is. I cannot understand what possessed the United States Supreme Court when they decided to allow for these gigantic corporations to invade our political environment and wreak absolute havoc on everyone. This makes no sense to me at all. Honestly, how you could possibly get the Supreme Court to back such a measure is not only beyond me in sense, in just understanding where they could imagine that a corporation is the exact same as a person, but it's just so far fetched that I would never have imagined that it could happen. No way. If you would have asked me 10 years ago, would we live in a country where the most important thing would be to ensure that corporations are happy and comfortable, I would have told you that you're out of your mind. But here we are, 2013, and that is our reality. We live in a world where the average American has heard of people like parents that find themselves unable to pay their child support. They're known as deadbeat dads. But you have gigantic billion-dollar corporations that pay zero in taxes. That's a deadbeat company. And there are so many of these deadbeat garbage companies that I simply cannot understand how we got to the point which we're in right now. I do understand that it began around the time of the Republican demigod Ronald Reagan. Wow, what a tool. This guy was a B grade actor, and he literally was a B grade president. And somehow the Republicans have latched on to this man as if he were the Messiah himself. Clearly, this man never made a decision on his own. He had a huge team of people constantly chirping in his ear, Mr. President, we need you to spend our money in this. We need you to fund $1 trillion for Star Wars. Oh, Mr. President, that's not enough. We need to increase the number of aircraft carriers that we have because obviously being more powerful than the next 26 countries in the world is absolutely critical to our success. Wow. Really? Now, we know what ended up happening. I mean, we're all familiar that the Cold War ended with good old USA bankrupting the Soviet Union, and I mean, literally, we won. The problem is that once it was over, we could have easily done the same thing and just, put a limit on some of this ridiculous military spending. But obviously, it wasn't possible because, as Eisenhower, I think it was Eisenhower, wasn't it? Who made the speech, the famous speech where he said that we as Americans should be weary of the military industrial complex because the influence that this giant mega conglomerate could exert on the country and especially the office of the president as well as the senators, the congressmen, was far too great to leave unchecked. Unfortunately, no one paid him any attention. Right now, we've found ourselves in a series of never-ending wars. It literally has not stopped since what, the Korean War. We haven't won any war since World War II, but we just seem to find ourselves in a perpetual state of war. Of course, the enemies have changed. We've had the Soviet Union, that's come and gone. We had Iraq, that's come and gone. I mean, that really isn't a success. We've just destroyed a dictator and left the country in shambles. But regardless, what's important is that as a country, we've been able to keep the hundreds of millions of people that uh, basically work in a gigantic industry where their only goal is to produce enough weapons to keep us in a perpetual state of war. There really is no historical equal in my mind to what is going on in America right now versus any country from the past. It could be said that the Roman Empire funded a tremendous military, but quite frankly, the Roman Empire wasn't as big and powerful as the next 26 groups that lived concurrently in their time. So while it may be nice and easy to say, oh, well, the Romans did it, they didn't do it like we do. We're right now in a situation where the government has literally been shut down for 16 days because they did not want, or no, let me not say they, the Koch brother slash Tea Party slash the Republicans did not want their year end bonuses to be affected by this medical equipment tax. It basically would have paid for this Affordable Health Care Act by charging a tax to high price medical equipment. Things like the x-ray machine, the MRI, the equipment that costs millions of dollars. That would have been where we would have funded the Affordable Care Act. But as you may or may not know, depending on what news channel you use as your source of news, even though they're all pretty bad now, considering that it's all about ratings. Um, you may think that the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, is the worst thing that's ever happened to America. I've got a lot of people that I know that literally I'm ashamed at their lack in knowledge, that they support the Republicans and the Tea Party so blindly, so faithfully, that they're literally in a position to where their fervor to want to dismantle our current government, which is a nice way of me saying that they absolutely hate our president, is it's without logic. It makes no sense. It literally to me seems that America, or not all America, just some Americans, have gone so far to the right that they cannot accept that finally the day has come to where their party member is not in charge of the country. Oh my God. Can you believe it's actually the dawn of a new era where a black man, oh my God, a black man is the president of the United States? They have spent every waking moment painting Obama as not only the Antichrist, they have compared him to Hitler. Really? What is wrong with some people? What is wrong? Like I said, I understand. I've got members of my family as well as some people that I consider very close friends that are in this party, this bandwagon of lunacy, that they compare our president to Hitler. Quite frankly, it makes me sick. It really does. I'm ashamed that some of them are this way. But unfortunately, there's not much I can do because you can't really try to rationalize with a moron. It just doesn't work. How do you explain something logical to a person that has an illogical, irrational hatred to a man due to the color of their skin? It simply can't be done. But why does something so petty, so plainly ignorant, have to affect so many people? Like I said, we're on the 16th day, and the announcement has come that there has been a deal. The problem is, as far as I know, this deal has not been finalized. It is still in the preliminary stages. It is still possible that something would come along and derail it. And obviously, no matter what, I'm afraid that at the end of the day, if you're, the type of person that's going to turn on the Fox News channel, you're going to actually hear some of the brain dead people talk about how they've succeeded. Their point was made. They fought for your rights to not have affordable health care. I mean, come on. Every freaking country in the world that has an educated populace, every country that doesn't call itself a third world country has health insurance. But here in America, the people are so patently stupid that that the cause of helping someone get health insurance threatened national everything. I mean, what word do you say? Security, our national economy, our national image. It affected everything. The source of it, like I said, was the Tea Party, aka Koch brothers International. How long is it going to take before Americans understand that the Tea Party has absolutely no interest in you as an American? If you're poor, if you're not an incredibly wealthy person, to the Tea Party, you are subhuman. Your only real value is your lack in knowledge of reality. They know that for the most part, if you pick up a pretty slogan, yay, less government, smaller government, you're going to have some yokels from the woods that are going to gather behind you like, like you're the Messiah, and they're going to support you, and they're going to be very, very loud and obnoxious, and they're going to push the agenda even though they have no idea what the agenda is. I've explained it before. I've explained it to a lot of people. The Tea Party agenda is to harm the government enough to where it no longer finds itself in a position of power to dictate any type of rules and regulations to these big companies. The reason they constantly harp on about wanting a smaller government is because they don't like things like the Food and Drug Administration. They don't want someone that could limit their ability to make higher profits by including sub-quality foods, or by saving money by cutting corners in safety, or even something like including dangerous chemicals in your food and not throwing it away because it exceeds a safe limit. So obviously their goal is smaller government. But they do it in a way that masquerades as some type of patriotism that says, we don't need such a bloated government. We don't need 800,000 people employed by the government doing this and this. It can all be done by 12 people. Well, let me let you know that's stupid. That's impossible. If you go outside right now and you do this, you just, you kind of look, you'll realize right away that we live in a pretty big world. And in that world, you can't really run the government with 10 people. It doesn't work like that. Your city itself needs a lot of people to make sure that everything runs smoothly. That's your city. What about your county? Then there's the state. And of course, beyond that is the country. There have to be thousands, tens of thousands, possibly even hundreds of thousands of employees in the government to ensure that you live a safe and happy life. But you've been preached to so fervently by the Koch brothers Tea Party that the government should be reduced, it should be shrank, it should be smaller, that to your own detriment, you will support their ignorance. Just remember the next time you see on television where there's a gigantic natural disaster like the BP oil spill. If you want less government, what you're in effect saying is you want it to be where when that happens, BP is more easily able to sweep the story under the rug, They won't have to put as much money on the side to help those that have been affected by the disaster. And at the end of the day, BP won't lose so much of its profits. That, in effect, is what you are supporting when you are a Tea Party zombie. You are handicapping your country. You have lost so much of a sense of reality. Your sense of patriotism is so misplaced that it's like I was saying earlier, you really can't explain the situation, because if you're trying to bring truth into a story full of lies, at the end of the day, you're going to come out of that a loser, because hundreds of lies are going to outweigh a simple truth that all these efforts that are being done are doing nothing but weakening our country. That is the one simple truth of what the end goal is for the Tea Party and the Republican Party. It's plain as day. You can see it. If you choose to ignore it, that's your right. And if you choose to be like these older people, and I say that with as much respect as possible, you know, as much respect as you could possibly have for an idiot, that these people sit there and they become absolute zealots. I've heard them. I've seen them. I'm nearly 40, but whenever I go to the doctor, whenever I go to the hospital, you can't escape it in the area of the country I live in. I live in southern Alabama. This is a place filled with IQs that you would laugh at in most developed countries. It's very ignorant here. And you have these people that are so set in their ways. They're so dumb. You can't tell them anything. If you try to explain something, they get so offended that I've actually had some people that in any other situation you would have expected them to be the nicest, most respectful people. But God forbid you bring up your opinion in their loud, ruffian conversation on how our government is horrible and our president's the devil. If you try to interject a little fact into their, little brain fart, they lose their temper. They will begin to yell, and inevitably some just huff off and leave. Yeah, you heard me right. These people act like 5-year-olds. If you try to explain that perhaps their thinking is not based on truth, but the opinion of people on Fox News, which earn millions of dollars to repetitively beat the idea into your head that all these things are good for you when they aren't, they can't hear that. They can't handle that. They're so angered by that they prefer to just leave. They will fight it. They will threaten. They will yell, and they will have their little tirade and disappear. It's very unfortunate, because it's this type of mindset that is really responsible for this whole government shutdown to begin with. Is there a solution? Unfortunately, I don't think so. The end result is going to be that in order for these things to change and for us to be in a country with less prejudice, less racism, less whatever you want to call it, we're going to have to go through another 10, 20 years of time so that the vast majority of these opinionative people have been allowed their expiration. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality that we face right now in America. We have a group of people that was so determined to stop others from getting the help they need to get their insurance that they're willing to put everything at risk for it. It makes no sense. You'll not find any logic behind it. The only thing you'll see is the rest of the civilized world looking at America, shaking their head, and simply asking what is wrong with those people. I myself don't know. Honestly, I've done everything I can to try to help people understand what they're doing is wrong, but like I said, you can't win that fight. It's not humanly possible. So hopefully in the next decade or two, the numbers will have shifted. We'll have more thinking people in positions where they can, affect our country, and less of these that we have today that are hell bent on destroying everything for no net gain of their own, only the gain of these huge corporations and millionaire billionaire people. We'll have to wait and see. Right now, I'm hoping that the government can get back to work and hopefully everything will go back to normal. But I don't put it past the Republicans or the Tea Party at this point to try to find a way to absolutely sink the ship one more time, just to make sure that they burn the house down before losing it. Hopefully it won't happen, but we have yet to see. For now, that's John Garza. Game was won. This is GWiz TV. Again, if you could, please hit that subscribe button. It helps us get more news to you. It allows us to talk to you. Without your support, we literally may not have a leg to stand on. Thank you for your time, and I will see you later.